Right now, beneath the streets of Naples, something absolutely terrifying is happening that scientists cannot explain. 2 weeks ago, ground sensors at Campi Flegrei showed temperatures at 173 degrees. Today, 213 degrees. 40 degrees hotter in just 14 days. That's not normal. That's not gradual. That's acceleration. And here's what's keeping volcanologists awake at night. They don't know where this heat is coming from. It's not in one spot. It's everywhere underground. Multiple heat sources activating at the same time. When we looked at the data from January 15th to January 29th, 2026, we saw something that made every geologist we contacted go pale. The ground itself is getting hotter. The pressure underneath is building. The uplift is increasing. And nobody, absolutely nobody, is prepared for what happens when all three of these things peak at the same time. This is what we found, and it changes everything about when Campi Flegrei will actually erupt. Listen, I need to tell you something that happened last month that literally nobody is talking about. On January 15th, 2026, Italian geological monitoring stations started recording something weird underneath Naples. The ground temperature readings came back normal. Nothing alarming. Everything looked fine. Scientists were going about their day, checking their instruments, drinking their coffee, thinking it was just another Tuesday. But 4 days later, they noticed something. The numbers started changing. Not slowly, not gradually. They started jumping. By January 29th, the same sensors that had shown 173 degrees were now showing 213 degrees, 40 degrees hotter. In 2 weeks. Think about that for a second. Have you ever seen your house temperature jump 20 degrees in an hour? You'd check your thermostat immediately, right? You'd be confused. You'd be worried. This is where it gets really interesting because usually when ground temperatures spike like this, geologists can pinpoint the location. They can say, okay, the heat source is here, at this depth in this specific zone. But when they looked at the thermal imaging data from January, they saw multiple hotspots. Not one heat source. Multiple, scattered across different areas underground. Some near the Solfatara crater, some near Picciarelli, some in places they weren't even monitoring before. The heat was everywhere, distributed. Like something massive was waking up all at once beneath the surface. Now, you might be wondering why this matters so much. Why would a 40-degree temperature jump be such a big deal? Here's why. Temperature increases in volcanic zones directly correlate with magma movement. When magma starts moving closer to the surface, it heats everything around it. The ground gets hotter. The rocks change. The underground chambers start pressurizing. During that exact same period, between January 15th and January 29th, the ground around Naples was also rising. 8 millimeters of uplift. That might sound tiny, but in volcanic monitoring, that's significant. Uplift means pressure is building underneath. It means something is pushing upward. And when you have both temperature increase and ground uplift happening at the same time, in the same time frame, it tells a story. It tells scientists that the magma chambers beneath Campi Flegrei are not just active, they're accelerating. So here's the question I want you to think about as I'm telling you this. If your city's ground temperature just jumped 40 degrees in 2 weeks, if scientists were detecting multiple heat sources underneath your streets, if the ground was literally rising, would you want to know about it? Of course you would, right? You'd want a warning. You'd want time to prepare. You'd want information. But here's what actually happened in Naples. Nothing. Silence. No public announcements, no emergency alerts, no headlines saying, "Hey, something weird is happening beneath your city." Now, I'm not saying there was a conspiracy or cover-up. I'm saying something actually more interesting happened. On January 25, 2026, the Italian Geological Institute did issue something. They sent out a red alert to government officials. A red alert. That's the highest warning level, NAMVO. But here's the thing that makes people angry when they find out. That alert went to officials, to emergency management, to government people in closed meetings. It didn't go to the news. It didn't go to social media. It didn't reach regular people living in Naples, Pozzuoli, or anywhere near Campi Flegrei. Why? That's what people want to know. When we started digging into this, when we looked at the official statements from January 25th onwards, we found something really revealing. It means the magma beneath is getting more active, pushing harder, releasing more pressure. Scientists can measure this, they can see it clearly, and they know what it means. What would you do if you were living there, and you found out later that scientists knew this was happening? That's the kind of thing that makes people trust institutions less. Here's what makes it even more complicated. The data from January 2026 matches patterns they saw before. Geologists went back through historical records and found similar temperature spikes, and uplift combinations had happened in Iceland before a major volcanic event. They'd happened in Chile. They'd happened in places that erupted weeks or months later. So when Italian scientists saw this same pattern forming beneath Naples, beneath one of Europe's most densely populated regions, they understood the timeline. But communication never happened the way it should have. And that's where everything gets confusing for regular people. Because scientists are sitting on data that shows something serious is building underneath your city, but you're going about your life normally, completely unaware. Imagine you have a sealed container underground, filled with hot, liquid rock. That's a magma chamber. Now imagine that rock is getting hotter. It's expanding. The pressure inside that container is increasing. The walls of that container are getting pushed from all sides. That's what was happening beneath Naples. The 40-degree temperature jump meant the magma inside those chambers was becoming more active, more energetic, more pressurized. And when you combine that with the ground rising 8 millimeters in 2 weeks, here's where it gets serious. Scientists have models for this. They have historical data. They can look at what happened in other volcanic zones and compare it to what's happening now. And when they did that comparison in January 2026, they found something that made them contact government officials immediately. The rate of pressure increase they were seeing underneath. Campi Flegrei was faster than what they documented in previous years. It wasn't just happening, it was accelerating. Think about that word. Accelerating. Not steady, not gradual, speeding up. Every week the measurements showed more uplift. Every few days the temperatures climbed higher. Every reading confirmed that whatever was happening underground was not slowing down. It was getting faster. And that's what made January 25th's red alert so significant. It wasn't just a warning. It was acknowledgement. It was scientists telling officials, we need to prepare for something. But prepare how? For what exactly? That's what nobody could answer because the data was still unfolding. The situation was still developing. 8 millimeters in 2 weeks might not sound like much, but imagine if your house rose 8 millimeters. Imagine if the foundation shifted. Cracks start appearing in walls. Doors don't close properly. Small things break. Infrastructure fails quietly before it fails loudly. That's exactly what started happening in Naples and Pozzuoli during late January 2026. People reported things. Small things at first. Hairline cracks in apartment walls, Buildings making strange sounds. The ground felt unstable in certain areas. Some people posted about it online. Others reported it to local authorities. But here's the problem. When individual people report isolated incidents, they don't sound like a pattern. They sound like coincidences. Your wall cracks. Someone else's door jams. Another person hears their building creaking. It seems random. And when the ground rises faster and faster, things break faster and faster. Infrastructure starts failing. Roads crack. Water pipes burst. Buildings that are fine today could be damaged tomorrow. And if the uplift continues accelerating at the rate it was going in late January. Here's the question I want you to think about. If you lived in Naples and you started noticing your building cracking, would you connect it to Campi Flegrei? Or would you just think it was old building problems? Most people wouldn't make that connection. Think about this for a second. There are almost 3 million people living in the Naples metropolitan area. 3 million. Most of them have no idea what's happening beneath their city. Some of them are elderly. Some of them are children. Some of them are disabled and wouldn't be able to evacuate quickly if something happened. And in late January 2026, when scientists knew the ground was getting hotter and the pressure was building, those 3 million people were just living their lives completely unaware. But nothing that made them think they needed to do anything. One woman told us she was worried, but didn't know who to ask questions to. Another guy said he'd been reading online about Campi Flegrei, but couldn't find current information. That's the disconnect. Here's what I want you to do right now if you're watching this. If you live near a volcano, if you live near any geological danger zone, go find out what you should actually know. Don't wait for someone to tell you. Search it yourself. Fast forward to February 2026. The temperature readings didn't stop. They kept climbing. The ground kept rising. And here's what's actually happening on the ground that people don't see on the news. More cracks. More earthquakes. Scientists are now updating their models every single day. Every day brings new data. Every day they're recalculating timelines. And here's what's terrifying them. The acceleration rate isn't slowing down, it's maintaining. Which means whatever happens next, it could happen sooner than they initially thought. Gas emissions continue to rise. More hot spots are being detected underground. The pressure isn't stabilizing. It's building. People living near Campi Flegrei are starting to get nervous. You can see it on social media. People asking questions. People sharing videos of their cracked walls. People wondering if they should leave. But leaving where, to where, and for how long? That's the confusion right now. What makes this moment in February 2026 so critical is that this is the decision point. This is when authorities have to choose between staying silent and risking lives, or speaking up and potentially causing panic. This is when people need to actually know what's happening so they can make their own choices. What we know is this. The 40-degree temperature jump in 2 weeks showed us that something massive is waking up beneath Naples. The multiple heat sources show us it's not localized, it's widespread. The acceleration shows us it's not stabilizing, it's getting faster. But here's what I need you to understand. This isn't just a Naples problem. This isn't just a Naples story. Because if Campi Flegrei erupts, if this volcano that hasn't erupted since 1538 actually erupts again, the impact reaches way beyond Italy. It affects Europe. The question I want you to think about and answer in the comments is this. If you lived in Naples right now, knowing what you know after watching this, what would you do? Would you stay? Would you leave? Would you demand more information from authorities? If you want to stay updated on what's actually happening with Campi Flegrei, if you want to know what happens next week, next month, what the scientists are discovering, hit that subscribe button. Because this story is developing, and you're going to want to know what comes next.